Test, test. One, two. Hello. Here we are. Okay. La la la. Now, anybody have any questions so far for your accessibility or connectivity to this class in this format? Concerns, your deepest, darkest fears. Okay, well, hopefully we are resolving those concerns and technical glitches as we go. I've got some, I still don't have one of my classes appearing in my Laker link. So, there's all of that kind of stuff. So hopefully by the end of the week, our IT department will get most of this stuff squared away and solved for us. We're gonna launch into a discussion of my first project today. So I wanted to do that. I'm gonna do a screen share, woohoo, screen share, and it's gonna turn into Death by PowerPoint. So, oh, there's somebody in the chat room. All right, don't forget to record. Thank you very much. Okay, so let me just check and see that I'm recording. Yes, I am. Let's do a screen share. And I'm gonna try to find, where are you? Would it be this one? Let's see. Oh, it's this one. Okay, okay, yay. All right. So I'm going to go back up to the beginning of my thing and turn on my little slideshow here. Oh, and then I have to push my little thing. Sorry, I can't move you guys. Why don't I want to move you guys a little bit out of the way there? Okay. So just going back one, like I may have mentioned on Monday, I like to do something in honor of the Martin Luther King holiday, which comes up brutally fast in the quarter. So hopefully we can do something quick and dirty and learn something about graphic design and a little bit about the civil rights movement, um, social justice, including the social justice movements that are happening right now contemporaneously in America. And so in no particular order, I guess we'll take it from the civil rights movement first. I'm going to talk a little bit about some things to get us primed and prepped for thinking about these topics. So let's start off where everybody does. And you guys probably saw this in one of your social studies classes in high school, but this is the I Have a Dream speech from Martin Luther King from the March on Washington in August of 1963. It was a very hot summer, 1963. Uh, Martin Luther King was leading movements about civil rights and trying to get what became the Voting Rights Act passed in 1964 and the Civil Rights Act passed in 1965. So legislation signed by President Johnson was passed in the 2 years that came right after this speech. So this is a pretty big deal. If you take a speech class, you'll talk about the I Have a Dream speech as one of the most profound and moving and effective public speaking speeches of American history and definitely of the 20th century. So it's worth it for us to look at it for just a minute. Let me set this up for you. At this point in the speech, Martin Luther King has been speaking on the National Mall in Washington, D.C. for, I don't know, 20 minutes or so. And he's been speaking from a text that he's got typed out and written down on a piece of paper in front of him on the podium. And he pauses for a minute because it's a hot day and he has to wipe his brow and stuff. And seated behind him on the rostrum are all kinds of dignitaries and people that are part of the movement and everything. And the jazz singer, the gospel singer, Mahalia Jackson, kind of leans forward and says, Martin, tell him about the dream. Tell him about the dream. Because he has used this part of the speech several times before when he's been preaching in churches, in the Black community, and that kind of stuff. But it's never been something that he shared on a national stage, on television, for all of America, including white audiences. So this is where he leans back and departs from his written text and then goes into the I Have a Dream speech portion of it. And I want to play it for you. It's about 5 minutes long, and it just gets us ready for this. Now, I have to ask your forbearance with this because I'm going to just pause it for a second and go full screen on you. This 5 minutes worth of very, very fuzzy videotape from the earliest time of television when videotape was not great. So this is kind of fuzzy, but hopefully you can turn up the sound on your own computers and listen to this. I do want to tell you that at timestamp, where did I write it down? Timestamp. I wrote it down on one of these papers. At 2:52, he's going to say just almost a throwaway quote at 2 minutes and 52 seconds into the speech that becomes the basis for the Martin Luther King Memorial that has been erected on the National Mall in Washington, D.C. And we're going to talk about that in a moment. But this is a way for you to start thinking about how quotes, whether they come from speeches or from written text or whatever, can become an inspiration for artwork, which can, become something that gets worked into graphic design. Because this project is going to be about taking an image and putting it together with text to create a graphic design that has both text and image in it. We're going to talk about memes. So I'm going to tell you that this is not a meme. So we're going to define memes and make a differentiation about memes from graphic design. But all that we're going to try to do this hour. So let's go ahead and look at the speech right now. We're going to play it here for you.
It is a dream deeply rooted in the American dream. I have a dream that one day this nation will rise up, live out the true meaning of its truth. We hold these truths to be self-evident that all men are created equal. I have a dream that one day on the red hills of Georgia, sons of former slaves and the sons of former slavery will they be able to sit down together at the table of brotherhood. I have a dream that one day, even the state of Mississippi, a state sweltering with the people injustice, sweltering with the heat of oppression, be transformed into an oasis of freedom and justice. I have a dream. My poor little children one day live in a nation where they will not be judged by the color of their skin, but by the content of their character. I have a dream today. I have a dream that one day down in Alabama with its vicious racists, with its governor having his lips dripping with the words of interposition and nullification. One day right there in Alabama, little black boys and black girls will be able to join hands with little white boys and white girls as sisters and brothers. I have a dream today. Dream that one day every valley shall be exalted. Every hill and mountain shall be made low, the rough places will be made plain, and the crooked places will be made straight. And the glory of the Lord shall be revealed, and all flesh shall see it together. This is our hope.
All people on my God.
With this faith, we will be able to hew out of the mouth of the staff of soul. With this faith, We will be able to transform the violent discourse of our nation into a beautiful symphony of brotherhood. With this faith, we will be able to work together, to pray together, to struggle together, to go to jail together, to stand up for freedom together, knowing that we will be free one day. This will be the day. This will be the day when all across the country be able to sing with new meaning, my country tears to thee. We land of liberty and we are saved. Land where my fathers died, land of the pilgrims died. From every mountainside, let freedom ring, and if America is to be a great nation, this must become true. So let freedom ring. From the Pocahontas hilltops of New Hampshire, let freedom ring. From the mighty mountains of New York, let freedom ring. From the hiking Alleghenies of Pennsylvania, let freedom ring. From the snow-capped Rockies of Colorado, let freedom ring. From the presidential slopes of California. But not only that, let freedom ring from Stone Mountain of Georgia. Let freedom ring from Lookout Mountain of Tennessee. Let freedom ring from every hill and molehill of Mississippi, from every mountainside. Let freedom ring, and when this happens, when we allow freedom ring, when we let it ring from every village and every hamlet, from every state and every city, we will be able to speed up that day when all of us, children, black men and white men, Jews and Gentiles, Protestants and Catholics, will be able to join hands and sing in the words of the old Negro spirit. Free at last, free at last. Thanks God Almighty, we are free at last.
Okay, that is very cool. So I'm going to stop that. Stop, cancel, whatever.
The biggest mistake.
Stop. Okay, go away now. In fact, I'm going to come back to you guys. No, I'm not. Let's see if I X out of this. Here, there's my. Okay, we are in a PowerPoint presentation, and so that was the "I Have a Dream" speech at timestamp 252. He said, "We will be able to hew out of the mountain of despair a stone of hope." And so that little almost throwaway line that was buried in that speech became the basis for the Martin Luther King monument that is now on the National Mall in Washington, D.C. This is a huge monument made out of granite. We see in the background here the mountain of despair, basically. This is a mountain-shaped installation of granite, and then this piece of it that has been hewn out of the mountain of despair and slid forward. This is the portrait of Dr. King. And we can see the symbolism that the artist was playing with. We're trying to see him as a super strong leader because he's standing with his arms crossed across his chest. He has a copy of the "I Have a Dream" speech it clenched in his hand, or just a scroll of paper, which can be symbolic for a number of things. It can be symbolic of the legislation that was to come 2 years later. It could be symbolic of the Civil Rights Act of 1964 or the Voting Rights Act of 1965. So anyway, clenched in his fists, showing strength, is the idea of a law and ideas, and the way that we can move people with ideas, and even in the idea of a public speech. So all of this stems from the "I Have a Dream" speech, and I'm going to move forward now. So when I started doing this project about 5 years ago, we were dealing with the police killings of young Black men in the United States, and it seems to have been nothing new. But with the onset of social media, suddenly there was an ability to put voices out there, and for movements to start to coalesce around some of this contemporaneous stuff that was going on. So Here's an interesting example of some graphic design from very, very early in the movements. We've got the last words here of Michael Brown, Trayvon Martin, Eric Garner, and John Crawford. Now, each of these guys had a run-in and was ultimately killed, either shot or choked to death by police or some other kind of vigilante or authority figure who thought that they were somehow acting in the interest of the state or the community or something like that. So over here on the right hand side are these four different little boxes that have a graphic element in them and a little drawing of some kind done by an artist. And then we have a quote. So we've got the text married to an image, and then we've got the name of the person and the date that they were killed down below, and their age and everything else. So don't have a gun, I don't have a gun, stop shooting. That's what Michael Brown said in Ferguson, Missouri, when he was shot by a police officer. There's a lot more to the story, and if you guys want to go in and study each one of these things, if one of these really resonates with you, that would be great. Trayvon Martin is the next one over here. What are you doing? Why are you following me? Was his quote before he got into a scuffle with a Citizens Watch person, a self-appointed Citizens Watch person, Zimmerman, and finally scuffling on the ground, the gun went off and killed Trayvon Martin. And it goes like that. So we've got a quote and we've got a piece of graphics. And so the two of them together are graphic design. Each one of these boxes over here is the idea of graphic design that we want to start from for this project. As I went ahead looking at how the movements were building and coalescing and organizing themselves in social media, I was also seeing that graphic design was playing a really important role in creating a brand for each movement and each kind of thing. So, you've got your hashtags on Instagram, Twitter. And so hashtag Black Lives Matter became Black Lives Matter, basically, as a movement. And here's a very early one with a black and white flag and hashtag Black Lives Matter. That's a graphic design. We have a graphic element, the flag, black and white, and then hashtag Black Lives Matter. So there's one. Going over to the right side of the screen, again, we have Black Lives Matter, period. And of course, those of you who work in social media quite a bit, you know how important it is when you put a period after some kind of a phrase, because that seems to put a stamp on it and almost like an exclamation point. And this was from an organization called colorofchange.org, which was trying to help promote the Black Lives Matter movement about 5 or 6 years ago. And so this is very interesting to me. Let's just do a little quick analysis of the red one over here. It's in a red square or a red box. And we have what we call in graphic design reverse text. We've got white text instead of black text, because we're used to seeing black on white in the printed media, and in 90 to 95% of things that we see are black text and black images on a white background as if it was a piece of paper. So this is graphic design in the 21st century dealing with color. So the color background is really important. It's red. What does red symbolize? Red can symbolize life force. Red can symbolize passion. Red can symbolize blood and all of the blood mysteries that go with that. So red can also symbolize violence. So it's by no accident that this graphic designer chose red as the background color in this, and then used a reverse text to put white text over the top of it. We also have the choice of a font that the Black Lives Matter is done in. We've got a font here that has both upper and lowercase letters. The font is a kind of a modern kind of a font that has very few serifs in it, and I'll start talking about how fonts have evolved and what font design is probably next time. But anyway, suffice it to say that this has a very contemporary feel. The letters are fat, the letters are very contemporary in the feel, in the content of the letters, which gives us a very contemporary feel for the message. Now I'm going to keep on going here. Here's another one, graphic design, the putting together of text and image. In this case, it's all black in the background. The background is back with reverse text. And so again, we've got black and white being used symbolically here, white for the message and black for the background. Hands up, don't shoot, is what the supporters of Michael Brown were saying based on his original quote, don't shoot or whatever. And he had his hands up when he was shot. And so that became the mantra for the protests in Ferguson, Missouri, 5 or 6 years ago. When we go back to even looking at things from the 1960s and 1970s in graphic design that were dealing with the Martin Luther King imagery and the message that came from the civil rights movement, we can take a photograph of Martin Luther King, and this is a photograph that has been photoshopped to put it into like, 3 very distinct shades of gray. We've got black, we've got gray, and then we've got white here that give us a sense of the lighting characteristics of the photograph, but it's kind of been reduced to its essential qualities. And so that's very interesting. It becomes a very graphic design element. And we've got his Let Freedom Ring, that he intoned from the speech, talking about the different mountains and the different mountain ranges all over the country, that he wanted to let freedom ring from the tops of all of these different kinds of mountains. Here, Let Freedom Ring has been put into a square box shape so that it would fit very nicely in this square negative space that is over Martin's shoulder in this compositional space. So this is not by accident. The letters in let are very, very large as a font size, so that they've been resized, and then freedom is small, so that's the same length as the word let, and ring has had a different size of typeface, of type size applied to it. Each one of these has a different size of type size applied to it so that they're all the same length, so that they've all been worked as a graphic design element to fit into a box so that they would fit into this square space, negative space. And also, the artist was really interested in lining things up with Martin's eyes, so that at his eye level is a really important part, freedom. Freedom aligns pretty much with Martin's eyes. And we see that a lot in art history and graphic design, that anytime you're working with a face, if you're working with a graphic design element, that's really important. I sure hope you guys are with me. I'm going to stop the share for just a second so I can come out here and see if you guys are still with me. Are you guys all still with me? Let's see. Oh, yes. Okay. I see somebody. Okay. So I'm going to go back to the screen share now. Sorry about that. Let's go back and do that again. Okay. Over here on this side, this is kind of an probably from the 1970s too, but it has a kind of an older feel to it. The Martin Luther King photograph and background, the background has been photoshopped in, we'll call it photoshopped, it's been edited in, so that it has a sepia tone to it that kind of goes along with the sepia tones. Sepia is shades of brown that go along with black, that give it a sense of a kind of a historic photograph. Now, we've got text boxes here where injustice anywhere is a threat to justice everywhere. That's one of his famous quotes. If you go and do a Google search for Martin Luther King quotes, you'll get a whole list of quotes. And you can use any Martin Luther King quote that you want to in your own graphic design. Here's somebody used this quote and paired it up with this picture of Martin Luther King. And again, if the photograph of Martin Luther King is cropped in such a way to create a negative space over one shoulder, then you can drop in some text boxes in here. I'm not exactly sure that this text box situation is as effective as the one over here, because these three lines are in three individual boxes, so they are separated from each other. And sometimes that doesn't scan as nicely as if everything were in one kind of a text box and in one kind of a space. The graphic artist also threw Martin Luther King Jr.'s signature in down here, almost as if this was a postcard or a painting in a gallery or a museum, because painters often sign their work in the lower right-hand corner of the painting. And so we've got a signature kind of down here, giving more authority and stamp of approval and stamp of authority to this kind of a composition here. Anyway, got to move on. You know, not just, I mean, graphic design is used all over the place. So again, for like public television's series, The American Experience, you know, sometimes they come up with their own advertising and graphic design kinds of things. So they did a series called Eyes on the Prize, America's Civil Rights Years, and American Experience is their brand. So they took their brand and stuck it in here too. But what we see is one of those marches, like the March on Selma, Alabama, or the March on Washington, where you got a lot of people in a line, you know, participating in a march from the 1960s. They're all shown in silhouette here, and the silhouette kind of goes down as if they're up on high ground, the moral high ground, because we have this large area of dark space beneath them, and they are above our eye level. So they're on the moral high ground, symbolically. And then in reverse text, we've got Eyes on the Prize, and then we've got a subheading after the main headline, America's Civil Rights Years. And let's see how the graphic designer plays with this. Eyes on the Prize are all in capital letters. We're using a serif font here that you'd find used in newspapers or in book publishing. And in fact, this serif is probably called Times New Roman, because when we use that font in Microsoft Word, they've stolen it right away from the New York Times and the publishing industry. So this kind of a font that has all of these little grace notes that are on the top and the bottom of each stroke, each vertical and horizontal stroke, that has a more of an historic publishing aspect to it. And so that tries to mimic or take on the content of and the authority of published books, published works, like things in the New York Times, like all the books in the library, like the whole publishing industry. When you use a font like this, you are associating yourself with that kind of authority. So as a graphic designer, the font that you choose has a lot of significance for the kind of content that it brings to your graphic design. On the second line down here, America's Civil Rights Years, we've got upper and lower case letters and a slightly smaller type size so that it works as a subheading, and it's not competing with the headline up here. The headline is in all caps and it's bigger. The subhead is below it in upper and lower case. It's in blue and it's in a slightly smaller font, so that we get you know, superior and inferior. We get primary and secondary messages in the composition. Now, I know I'm going way too far on all of this. 5 years ago, the movie Selma came out, and it was a really interesting movie. I highly recommend you guys watch it. The soundtrack for it included the song Glory, which was a really cool, hip song that kind of celebrated all of that imagery, or all of the message there. One thing I'm interested in is the movie poster for Selma over here on the right-hand side. Again, we want to look at how the graphic designer played with elements here. So we have text in this negative space up above here, and it's above Martin Luther King's head. And so we have to ask ourselves, where are we in this in this setting here? Where are we? Well, we are behind Martin. We are involved in the march. We are embedded in the march, and we're right behind Martin, and he is facing the phalanx of state troopers in Georgia on the other side of the Edmund Pettus Bridge in Selma, Alabama. And so this is what he's facing, the kind of threat of violence, implied violence, and all of that kind of state-sponsored violence that was being directed against Black people and against the peaceful, nonviolent marchers in the 1960s. Now, I want to talk a little bit about the symbolism here, because we have a strong vertical element, a vertical axis in this composition. This is a vertical composition, and if you take all of this stuff up here, all of the text is centered text in this page, and then Martin is centered right on the same vertical axis, and so we have this very strong vertical right here. Then we have a huge, really strong horizontal down here, a secondary axis in the composition. We've got Martin's shoulders going all the way across, and then we've got the phalanx of officers and police are a horizontal axis in the composition. And so when you have a strong vertical axis and a strong horizontal axis, that kind of implies a Christian motif. That's like a Latin cross, even if it's turned upside down. We have a strong vertical, I'm sorry, go back one. Strong vertical, strong horizontal. And so, even the idea of religion, even the idea of the authority of righteousness and that kind of stuff gets embedded in here when you are a graphic artist and you're playing with all of the tools available to you, symbolic as well as photographic and textural wise, when you're building graphic design stuff. I'm looking at the clock. I know I've been talking for about a half hour. I'm just going to look at some of this other stuff real quickly here. So there were NFL protests over the last several years. Colin Kaepernick is here shown taking a knee, which started a movement, and a lot of other NFL players were taking a knee. Then President Trump got mad about all that because he thought that he could get his followers to get mad about that as being against the national anthem and the flag and being somehow anti-American. And so on the one hand, you had all of the team members joining along, understanding that it was symbolic speech, that it was freedom of speech and protected speech. And you had the NFL getting all bent out of shape because a lot of their the people who watch NFL games were not taking the protest in the spirit in which it was offered. So anyway, there's all of that kind of stuff going on. The Me Too movement is another possible approach that you can take to civil rights, social justice, and those kinds of things. This movement started a year or two ago with #MeToo, and it was all about survivors of sexual harassment in the workplace. A lot of the people who had bad experiences with Donald Trump, but then all kinds of other public figures were coming out and coming forward about it, and a lot of those folks that were very prominent made it to the cover of Time's Person of the Year issue for the people who were front and center in the Me Too movement back in about 2018 or so. And so I've got to keep going here. Let's talk for a moment about what a meme is and what's the difference between a meme and graphic design. A meme is one of these stupid things that have kind of cropped up in social media, but the idea of a meme even predates social media. So we'll talk about the social media meme, which seems to be a graphic design thing. It's a photograph, and then we've got kind of like a joke in here. We've got the setup of the joke up above and the punchline of the joke down below. So it kind of is set up as a joke. They're supposed to be funny. Oftentimes they poke fun at people who represent different groups. And so I'm really uncomfortable with the idea of memes because in this kind of graphic design context, what we'd like to do is make a more powerful graphic design statement, hopefully, about something that's important and that's important to you that deals with civil rights or social justice. So I don't want you to run out and use a meme maker to do your graphic design assignment for this assignment. I really want you to do this in Microsoft Word, or if you have more powerful graphic design software, if you're already in the digital design program here at the college and you've already got the Adobe suite of programs, Adobe Illustrator and Photoshop and all that stuff, you might have the tools and the horsepower to be able to do your graphic design project in the Adobe suite of programs. Otherwise, for the class that has never done this before, we're going to do this in Microsoft Word. Okay, so what is a meme? A meme was coined, or the idea of meme was coined by the often controversial evolutionary biologist Richard Dawkins in 1976 in his book, The Selfish Gene. The Greek word meme, he derives mean from, and it comes from the ancient Greek mimema, meaning that which is imitated, something copied. So the idea is that a meme is something that is copied and transmitted in the culture. And that's basically where the idea of the modern graphic design, social media meme comes from. And so here's to memes. Here's to memes that make us smile. And you guys, you live in a world that's full of memes, and you get a lot of memes in your feed every day. I hate memes. I don't subscribe to a lot of social media, and so I don't really deal with memes. And so I just wanted to put that out there as a challenge to all you guys who love your memes and eat your memes on a daily basis, that there's a lot more to the world than memes in terms of graphic design. So what I'm asking you guys to do, is to try to find your connection to civil rights and social justice in honor of the Martin Luther King holiday. I want us to make one graphic design that brings in one image, one photograph or artistic image that you can find and copy and bring in from an internet Google search. And I want you to combine that with one piece of text that communicates something. It can be a quote from Martin Luther King or anybody else who's out there dealing with all of these social justice issues. And I want to put those two things together. And I'm talking too damn much about this. So I'm gonna abandon this for now. Let's see if I can get out of this again. I'm gonna stop my share. I'm gonna come back to you guys. Yay, we can come back to this. But I'm gonna quickly go to a quick other screen share before we quit this for the day. I have put together in coursework in my LakerLink in e-learning our first project. And so our first assignment is already uploaded in coursework for you to look at. And so it is an assignment that details how to go about this graphic design thing. So now I'm going to, let's see, once again to the screen share and quickly go to one and talk about it. So we are now in, I'm going to put this someplace so I can talk about this. So we're now in Microsoft Word. We've got the Microsoft Word toolbar across the top of the page. I've got my desktop here. I've got a piece of paper on the desktop. And I don't even know if this is in you know, if this is a portrait or if this is a landscape thing. In fact, I could go ahead and check it really fast if I cared up to. In layout, this is, what orientation is this? We are in landscape. So the piece of paper is horizontal here. That's great. So what have I got here? Let's click on these things and break this apart. I've got an image here of a young black man in a hooded sweatshirt. I've got an image over here of a police officer standing in front of a squad car. Both of them have their arms folded. I have a text box here that I have created that says something. And I just came up with this text myself because I thought it was really interesting. And so I'm trying to put these three things together and see how I might make them come together. So I have imported this image from the internet. This is an image. You can bring stuff into Microsoft Word, and I'll show you how to do that on Friday. But basically, I brought this in, then I'm right-clicking on the image to this drop-down menu, and I'm going to come down here to Wrap Text, and I'm going to click on Wrap Text and then go over here to Tight, and I'm going to assign Tight Wrap Text as the format for this. Now I can put this anywhere in the compositional space and it stays put. It doesn't snap back to its original dimensions. It doesn't snap back to its original anything. So I can resize this and it doesn't snap back to its original. And I did the same thing with this. And so I tried to take these two and put them together. And so I jammed them together, and I just wanted to see if they're still the same size, because I can nudge this a little bit bigger, just nudging it up like that, pulling on the handlebar until they line up in alignment across the top and align in alignment across the bottom. Okay, then it's not perfect, but anyway. Then I've got my text box where I can create a text box. And so we go to View, Format, where is it? Layout, Design, text box. I'll show this to you guys better. There we go. Text box is over here in the Insert tab of the tools. And so here's text box. We drop down to text box to draw a text box. And so I can draw a text box anywhere I want to. And then I can type in anything I want into the text box. And then I can play around with the text. And now I have done that. So I'm going to get rid of that text box. I'm going to deal with this text box here. This text box has had the fill color taken out of it so that it is a transparent text box. And this text box has had the outside border line taken off of it. I'll show you guys all how to do that so that now it has no border line. This text box has text in it, which I have resized to this, and I have applied a certain color to this text. And so now I can take this text box and slide it up in here so that it is in contrast. I chose a color and a font and a size of font that would work in contrast with both of these photographs so that I can read this text in a nice, color and contrast to the background stuff in the composition. The background of the police officer especially goes from high key to low key. It goes from white to black. This is a very difficult thing to be able to run text across in one color and to be able to see the text. So I chose orange as the text because the orange text would run really nicely across the bottom of the young black man in the hoodie. It would also run really nicely across all of this visual garbage that's in the background down here of the police officer so that I can see this text and I can read it legibly and in contrast with the background. These are some of the things that as a graphic designer, we're going to play with in the next week or so. The simplicity of this project belies its complexity. All I'm asking you to do is find an image out there in the world someplace and import it into a Word document. All I'm asking you to do is come up with some kind of a piece of text and create a text box for it. And then we're going to spend a week trying to size the text box to the image and try to marry image and text together to make a profound, powerful graphic design statement that deals with some aspect of civil rights or social justice. that is what I'm hoping to do this week. And I'm going to hit the stop share button and come back to you guys. That, is a simple project, and yet it seems super hard and daunting to you right now if you've never done graphic design before. I'm open for any questions if you guys have any questions for me, or I'd like to ask you guys, has any of you guys done much graphic design in high school or in your own life as a young designer? Some of you have never done graphic design before, and so this is going to be completely new, and I'm going to hold your hand and walk you through the whole process of doing the graphic design. Others of you can take this assignment and run with it because you have lots and lots of experience with graphic design, and you've played this game before in high school and in other ways. So anybody here have any experience with graphic design that you'd like to talk about or volunteer and share with anybody? Please unmute your mic and go ahead and share it with us. Anybody have any questions about this process so far? Does this look like it's totally difficult, impossible? Hey, Autumn Davis is here. I'm going to give Autumn some points for being here today. If I can find you. Oh, you're not even on my list. You must have just signed up. Autumn, okay. Gets a check for being here. Who else showed up late? Jordan, Gabriel, maybe Gabriel. No, Danielle. Daniela is the late one. Okay, so Daniela. Okay, and you are where? Where's Daniela here? Where's Vimbala? There she is. All right, all right. So everybody is in here today. You got your participation points. Well, I have scared the heck out of you guys. What I'd like you to do between now and Friday is to start looking around on the internet. If you haven't been paying attention, or if you don't know about social justice movements, you haven't been paying attention to the news out there. And I want you guys to start Googling social justice, civil rights, or social reckoning, and you will see all kinds of stories and ideas about this stuff. And all I want you to do is try to find your thing that you can play with. If you want to just go and find an image of Martin Luther King, that's fantastic. But please find an image to play with. And when you found your image, you have to come up with some kind of a piece of text. And once again, you can Google Martin Luther King quotes. You can Google social justice quotes or social justice ideas, and hundreds of different quotes and ideas will become available to you to pick one, and again, bring that in. And so you'll have an image and you'll have a piece of text or an idea, and this project is going to be trying to put those together into a composition that achieves some of the needs of graphic design. And I'm going to do more of this, a lot more of this discussion on Friday. I have recorded this lecture, and so I'm going to post this as a recording so you'll be able to look at this again, and other people who have missed this lecture will be able to see it in their own time between now and Friday, so that you can kind of pick up on some of this stuff. And otherwise, don't worry. I know that this has been a lot and that you're totally buried in this right now, but I will break it down. I'll walk us through it. I will hold your hands and I'll get you through this, and we'll get an interesting graphic design concept put together in the next week and a half or so, in honor of the Martin Luther King holiday, which this year comes on January 18th, which is a Monday, which means it's our national holiday, and we won't have school on Monday, January 18th. I'm making this first project due on January 18th. And then I've got a due date extension if you can't make the January 18th due date. But that'll give us something to talk about on the Wednesday, January 20th, when we do come back to school again to talk about this project. So I'll see you on Friday. We'll start to break this down and talk about it. Formulate your questions for me, because you have many questions that are not quite formulated yet, and I'll be happy to answer your questions on Friday as we start to talk about this more. I'm going to say goodbye for now, because you've been drinking from the fire hose for the last hour or so. So I'll post a recording of this video on our website, and we will meet again on Friday at 9 o'clock in the morning. Goodbye for now, and I'll see you again on Friday.